They are here, my friends. The new Hourglass Ambient Light Edit palettes. These are limited edition. They usually come around this time every year, and we have 3 different palettes. This arrived so fast. I did pay for overnight shipping, but they were here this morning at like 9 a.m. So I'm gonna try all of them on for you. I have a few other Hourglass palettes that I'm gonna compare them with. I had many more, but I've been giving them away to friends, family, and these are the only 3 that I have left in my collection. So I'm gonna compare them with this. I'm excited. I know you guys are excited because I got so many messages on Instagram about it. So let's get started. These are $90 each. I do have a 10% off coupon with Hourglass, and that is Tania. I'll put it on the screen and make sure to link it down below. And I definitely used my code and paid $81 for each. Still very expensive, but it's Hourglass. You do get 6 pans in all of these. They are smaller, but these will last you a lifetime. I've never hit pan on one of these. And in each of these palettes, there's only 1 repeat and 5 new shades, which we love to see. And I think the repeat in each of them is more of a setting powder, which I am actually happy to have a repeat of those, just because it's one of those products that you use all the time. I'm gonna go ahead and do some swatches and compare the last year's palettes with the ones this year, but I will make sure I have timestamps down below. If you're not interested in that, you can just kind of skip ahead. Let's look at the palettes. This is the lightest one, the dragon one, and this is how the inside looks like. The first thing that I've noticed is that it looks a little bit more neutral tone. Definitely the bronzer doesn't look warm, and I think that's an issue with Hourglass. In the other palettes from Hourglass, I found that the bronzer always pulled really warm, so I'm glad to see that that looks more neutral. Also, it's soft, it's beautiful. You do have some peach in there. I'm excited. So this is the dragon one. The packaging, some people love it, some people don't. I personally much more preferred the packaging from last year. I loved this owl one. I think it looks so sleek. It's very much my style. Even this one, I think it's beautiful. These I don't love as much. The Lotus I think is my favorite. I think that's really cute and kind of that's pretty. I like this one. The dragon's okay. I don't like the evil eye. Again, that's personal preference. So talking about the evil eye, this is the medium palette. This is how it looks like, and I really like to see that it is substantially darker than the light one. I'm actually going to put them side by side. Here they are side by side. This is the lighter one, obviously, and I definitely see quite a big jump in color, in depth, so I'm excited to see that. The last one is the Lotus, and this is the deepest one, and this is pretty deep. I want to say this is the deepest the Hourglass came out with. I'm gonna put it next to the medium one. Here they are side by side, the medium and the deep, and you can see here that we have quite a few deeper shades that probably won't work on me. A quick comparison with the deeper one from last year. I actually picked my own packaging last year and put the tiger with the deepest one, but this isn't the original packaging. I think this year you can customize your palettes. I'll link it down below where you can do that if that's the case. I thought I saw it online, but this year I left it the proper way for you guys so it won't be confusing. Here are the palettes. This is last year's deepest shade and this year, and you can tell that there's a lot more depth in this new one. The bronzer looks darker, the blushes look darker. I'm very curious how that will work. I think this is going to be too deep for me, but I thought the same thing last year, and I loved the blushes in this palette, so we'll see. One thing that I hate about this packaging is that this is all tin, but there's no mechanism to have the palette sit up straight, and it is so annoying. That was a big complaint last year, and I feel like they haven't fixed that. For example, this is an older one, but like it sits up properly. So I wish that they did something to make this palette sit up straight a little bit, because it's very annoying when you do your makeup. Here is a swatch of the lightest shades. You get some peach in there, some rosiness. The bronzer doesn't seem too warm, which is really nice to see. I would say it's very neutral. And the highlighter is beaming. Here are the swatches for the middle palette. This is the Evil Eye. And you can see they're definitely more intense. That bronzer looks absolutely beautiful. I'm very excited about this. And here are the swatches for the deepest palette, the Lotus Flower. And the blushes are quite intense. The bronzer is definitely deeper, but I'm curious how it will work on really deep skin tones. I swatched real quick the deepest palette from last year so you guys can see it side by side with this year's palette. This is this year's palette and this is last year's palette. I definitely think this year's palette is deeper. The bronzer looks deeper. The blushes seem more intense. The highlighter is very intense. And last comparison before we move on to application, I swatched here the lightest palette from last year's, is this one, with the snake palette, dragon palette, I'm sorry, from this year. So here they are side by side. This is this year's palette and last year's palette. I think this year's palette is less pink overall. Here is a close-up look at this palette. I'm kind of liking this year's palette. I like the bronzer a little bit more. It's more neutral. I think there's more variety in blushes. You get some peach, you get some rose as well, and the highlighter is not quite as pink as last year. This is last year, this is this year. Let's start with the Dragon palette. Here we have one shade that it is a finishing powder that we've had in different palettes. This is the Dream Light, or this may just be individual. I don't know. I don't own that shade. And then everything else is new. This is another finishing powder, 2 blushes, a bronzer, and a highlighter. So we are gonna do a full face of just this, and then I'm gonna do a full face of the medium and the deep because I already recorded the review for the light and the medium, and I just felt like it was starting to look muddy because I was trying to put too many products on one cheek, and I just didn't think that that was a good review. So I wiped my makeup off and we're starting it again. So I do have a few thoughts on this product. Starting with the bronzer. This is a beautiful bronzer. It is more of a neutral finish. You'll see right here. It's not too cool tone. It's not warm at all. So I feel like Hourglass has finally listened to us and given us more neutral bronzers. In the past, we have seen quite a lot of warm bronzers in these palettes. So I'm really happy to see that these are more neutral shades. That is the bronze, no bronze. I think that looks really, really pretty. Let's do our nose too, a little bit of a contour. Probably should have used a smaller brush for this, but oh well, we're about to wipe everything off, so I'm not being too careful right now. It's so easy to blend this bronzer. Just in general, all these Hourglass powders tend to be quite soft. They all have some sort of luminosity to it. Even though it says that it's matte, it's not that completely flat matte. I feel like my forehead looks defined without being very matte. Here is the bronzer applied, and I really like it. I think it's really beautiful. I think it's gonna work for lighter skin tones. Yeah, I also really like the shade. In my opinion, this one, yeah, it's neutral, not too cool tone at all, not too yellow either. I like the tone of this. Now we're gonna take a little bit of the powder. Let's start with the lightest one, and we're gonna go with this under the eye. Now these are finishing powders, they're not setting powders. I already set my under eyes, but just putting a little bit of here to smooth out. I mean, just look at that blur. I hope the camera can pick it up, but this side looks completely blurred and filtered to this side. Wow, I love these from Hourglass so much. On this side, I'm going to put the other finishing powder just so you can see them side by side. Kind of wipe off that brush. And then we're going to, with the newer shade, this has a little bit of peachy pink in it. And I really like this shade. I think it is so beautiful. I remember when these came out, like many years ago, these finishing powders, the trio that Hourglass came out with, I used to use that on my clients all the time. That was like the cherry on top, and everybody was like, what did you put on? Because it made their face look like a filter. Here is Dream Light powder, and then Divine Light. This is a newer one. It has more of a soft peachy pink, and this has a little bit of lavender in it, although I don't see it really, well, maybe a little bit. It is more brightening in my opinion. Beautiful blur filter on the face. Let's move on to this blush right here. This is a mauve shade. It's described as, I think, a soft plum. And we're gonna put it on this side right here. This is an interesting shade because it is a little bit mauve, but there's also some depth to it. It almost looks a little bit bronzier, don't you think? Like if I look straight, it almost looks like there's some bronze happening there. I find it very interesting. This is more of a matte finish. I don't see any actual shimmer in it or too highlighty. I'm gonna build it up a little bit. I'm gonna build up the blushes just more than normally, just so you can see the color, even if it looks a little crazy. But that is a very interesting shade. In the pan, it just looks like a straight up kind of mauve, not boring shade, just mauve. But on the cheek, it kind of transforms, and it almost, in certain lights, looks a little bit more warm, some more pink. I really think this is a very interesting shade. To me, this looks like I'm wearing two different blushes in a good way. You know, like I put a lot more effort in my blush than I did. Okay, let's move on to this peachier, brighter shade. This one is definitely more shimmery and I think more corally. Let's put it here. Yeah, this has a ton more shimmer in it. You see right there? It's almost like a strobe blush. Very beautiful though, that color. This will be much more brighter on you if you have lighter skin tone. You definitely don't need a highlighter with this one because it does have that glow in it much more than this one. Well, this one shows up too. Yeah, I think this one is glowier, and it has that marbling in it, as you can see right there. Here are the two blushes side by side. This is the peachier one. It has that glow, and here's the more rosy, plummy shade. I'm gonna take a little bit of this like finishing powder and just making sure that everything is blended in. This is a great way to use these powders as well. Just to blend in the blush with the bronzer, with the under eye. These are built up. You can do it softer. I normally would do softer. I just wanted to show you kind of how it looks like. Now onto the highlighter. This is a very intense highlighter, so be warned. I'm gonna take some off, and then we're gonna put a little bit right here. Very, very intense. I mean, when I first put it on, before I wiped my makeup off, I put way too much and it was blinging. So if you like an intense highlighter, this is it. Look at that. Let's put a little bit more on this side. This reminds me of the old formula from Hourglass. Remember the trio highlighter? I still have it. It reminds me of that formula where it's intense, but still very beautiful and sits nice on the skin. And here is the look with the Dragon palette, which is the lightest one. I really like it. I love the finishing powders in these. I love the bronzer. The blushes are a little bit more unique, more different. I think this mauve shade is the most unique shade I've seen in a while because it does have that mauvey, plummy effect, but there's also some warmth in it. So it looks like you've combined a couple of shades. And then the peachy shade it's beautiful. Moving on to the second palette. This is the Evil Eye palette. And again, like the other one, we have one shade that is a repeat, and then everything else is new. We do have here a highlighter. We have 3 blushes here instead of 2 finishing powders, and then a bronzer. The bronzer looks good. The bronzer looks kind of almost cool tone-ish or neutral. I feel like a neutral cool tone. So I'm gonna start with the bronzer. I'm just using this big old BK Beauty 104. I did forget to mention that Hourglass is selling their Ambient Duo brush, and you can get a design with the Evil Eye or the Dragon on this, and this is supposed to work real well with the palette, and it does. I just like fluffy big brushes. So I am going to take the bronzer and putting it here. The foundation I'm wearing today is the new Huda Beauty foundation. I really like it, and I did powder my under eye. Let's put the bronzer here as well. That is a beautiful shade. It looks more, maybe more cool tone than the lighter one. What do you guys think? Or it pulls on me a little bit more cool tone, right? Like, look at that. Let's blend that out a little bit. Yeah, it looks kind of cool tone. Definitely no issues with blending. This doesn't have any marbling, so it's more on that soft matte finish from Hourglass. And it builds up nicely. I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to look muddy, so I'm slowly building this up. That is the bronzer, and it's a very interesting shade. I'm not sure if it's super flattering on me. I think I can make it work, absolutely. But it almost looks like there's some red in it, but not that warm red, more cool tone. On me, it just looks a little bit more as a bronzer, which I am not mad about. I've been wanting something like this from Hourglass, but just know that going in, it does blend in really nicely. It looks good overall. Yeah, very different tone from Hourglass. There is a bird outside full on singing. It's actually really cute. Okay, let's take this powder, the finishing powder, and I'm just gonna set like I did with the light shade. I'm gonna set this area. I love these powders. It looks so smooth. It's an instant filter on your face. It's incredible. And I do like to take it here and kind of blend just the bronzer. That is the finishing powder. I am loving this. Wow. What's the name of this? Soft Light. I think this has some peach in it. It looks on the skin that it has some peach in it. Yes, it is a pale peach powder. I am loving that so much. Okay, now we have 3 different blushes to test out. So I think I'm gonna do these 2 together and the pink one by itself, because this one is a pale, softer, peachy, beigey shade. This is a bright coral, and then this is, I think it's a cool pink. So I think it's wise to separate them. I am starting with this shade right here. This is a lighter shade. It does have a lot of kind of sheen to it, and it reminds me of the new cream to powder Chanel blush, the beigey one. It reminds me a lot of that one. Love this so much. This is a perfect everyday blush for people that don't like super intense blushes. I am building it up right now just so you can see it, but this is my favorite blush so far that I've tried. I think it's very unique. I like that it has that glow in it. It's kind of a mix between a highlighter and a blush. That's really, really beautiful. I love that. And then I'm going to take the coral shade and pop it right here in the center. Whew. It's definitely intense. Trying to be gentle. But I love a corally shade. I think it's so pretty. Does this have a sheen to it? Or is the sheen from the original? Yeah, I mean, they all have a little bit of a sheen right there, but I think what you see is a lot more from the more beigey shade. Oh, I think I'm going to put this here just so I can see the color by itself. That's really pretty. It does have a sheen to it as well. I am taking a little bit of that finishing powder and blending this in. I went a little crazy with the blush to try to build it up. One thing that I don't like is that I combine the coral with this, but this one has a lot of glow in it. It's almost like a highlighter blush. And so now you can see the highlighter much more than you see the coral shade. Does that make sense? So I think I'm gonna wipe this off at the end and put the coral by itself just so we can see the color, because I think this would be a beautiful bright color, but right now it's kind of mixing with that beigey shade a little bit too much for my liking. Mostly here. Can you see that? Okay, so I'm gonna do that actually right now. I cleaned it up as well as I could. So let's take this bright shade and pop it here. I just felt like combining those two was making it look a little muddy. So I just want to give this color its time to shine. Here is the color Vibrant Coral, which is described as a true coral, and it is. This will work great on medium skin tones. On me, it looks a little, not dark, but it's not super bright. There's some other colors that for my skin tone would look more corally. I still love it. I think it's a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous shade. Okay, let's move on to the last blush, which is this. And I think it's described as a cool pink. Let me double check that. Yes, it's called Pink Fusion, and it is a cool pink. I will say that these are more pigmented. This deeper palette or medium palette is significantly deeper and more pigmented than the other one. So I think if you have medium skin tone, you could use this palette and it will show up on you. Oh, that's beautiful. I don't know how cool pink tone it is, but I will preface and say that most cool pink tones will pull warm on me. It's just my skin tone. On you, it may pull quite cool tone, but I have a handful of pinks that actually look cool tone on me. Everything else is pulling warm. That is a stunning shade. That is so, so beautiful. So this is the coral shade. I will build this up just a little bit more. I'm using a Sonia G brush. This is Soft Cheek and I love this. So, so beautiful. Here is that shade. And then the coral shade right here. Wow, all my bruises. Sorry, guys. I feel like it makes the makeup look messy, but it's not the makeup, it's my skin. And I'm not wearing a full coverage foundation. And last but not least, let's take this highlighter. I'm a little scared because it looks intense and deeper. Let's see. No, I think it's gonna work. And we're gonna slowly apply it. It's just so intense. These highlighters, they're not these soft, barely there highlighters. These are beaming. Okay, that looks like it has a rose tone to it. Yes, it is rose gold strobe light, a soft rose gold. Oh, I like the highlighter a lot. That is beautiful. Here is how the medium palette looks. I think it is really beautiful. I love seeing how much deeper this is compared to the lighter shade. I definitely saw it in the bronzer. I feel like that shade of bronze is going to be really good to contour for medium skin tone, light to medium and medium, because it is a more interesting, unique shade that I really don't see often. The blushes are quite pigmented, as you can see. My cheeks are nice and bright. The highlighter is very intense. That's the one thing that I'm worried in this palette, that if you have medium skin tone and you use the highlighter, it is so bright, but it does have some gold in it and some rose, so I'm curious how that will look on you. I love the finishing powder in here. I think it is such a beautiful soft peach tone to it. I love all the blushes. My favorite is still this beigey shade. I think it looks really pretty on my skin tone. I really like the more pinky one. The coral shade is also beautiful, but it is a little deeper for my skin tone. I have other shades of coral that are brighter. I still love the way this looks like, but it's not quite as bright as I was expecting it to. All right, guys, I'm gonna wipe this off and we're gonna go to the deeper shade, and then I'm gonna give you my thoughts on all of them at the end. I'm a little scared because this is going to look very dark on me. I'm gonna be careful with how I use it, but okay, let's just start. Last palette, and it's the prettiest packaging in my opinion. I kind of wish I had this in maybe the lightest shade because I'm probably going to use that the most, but this is the inside. I'm a little scared, I won't lie, but I'll take it slow. I will remind you that all of these, you can use them on your eyes, a little bronzer, some highlighter. You could just do a whole eye look with these. So let's start with the bronzer right here. This intimidates me. That color, that's not for me, okay? But I love seeing it in here. So I'm looking at the colors and the names, and the one that's not new in here is this one. This is supposed to be a finishing powder. It is called Eternal Light. This is called Bronze Heat Red O Blush. That looks beautiful. We have another blush here, Desert Flush, and then Radiant Rose Strobe Light. So this is a highlighter, and then another highlighter, Gilded Strobe Light. This is a bronzer, but I'm going to use this as a bronzer. I may add a little bit of that. You know what? Let's just try it. This is not made for my skin tone, okay? So it should not look good on me. But I'm just going to show you the color. Let's start here. It's probably gonna look more like a bruise on me. I am being very gentle with this. So because of the tone, I feel like it would be a good bronze contour for deeper skin tones. That looks like a good color for that. I'm gonna use it sparingly just to kind of show you how this looks. It looks more almost like a blush, a deeper blush on me. It's not tragic, actually. Not tragic at all. I think on the eyes it would look really pretty. I'm gonna do the bronzer, this one, on the other side. I just was curious about this shade. I feel like it would be good, again, more of as a contour. And if you have my skin tone as an eyeshadow, it's a pretty eyeshadow, even a blush. So you can see the difference between the official bronzer in this palette, and I went a very light because it's obviously too deep for me, and I feel like even on me it can look more as a contour. Obviously not the best shade for me. And then the bronzer is really beautiful, actually. I like it. I'm going to take a little bit of that shade and just, wait, this side. Just give myself just the tiniest bit of bronze right there, just so we're even. I meant contour, not bronze. And then we're gonna bronze on this side with that setting powder. You know what I want to do? I do want to take this on my crease a little bit. Let's see how that looks like. I think it would be a pretty color. Ooh, that is so pretty. I love that. So if some of the shades are too deep for you, just try them on the eyes. That looks so pretty. I love that tone for the eyes. Moving on to the blush, I'm going to start with this one right here. That looks like it would work on me really well. It is quite pigmented. So we're going to put it right here. Last year, I was kind of scared of the deeper palette, but I love the blushes in that so much. It became one of my most used palettes, Hourglass palettes. And that is absolutely stunning. I feel like, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I feel like this is going to be this case this year as well because that is absolutely gorgeous. I like that it's a little bit more matte. It does have some glow in it, but it's not too much. The lighter ones definitely had a lot more sheen in their blushes. I'm building this up a little bit. I love that color so much. This is described as a deep beige peach. No wonder I love it so much. And then I'm excited about the True O. This is a red color. Let me build this peach shade up a little bit more. Oh, I love this so much. Absolutely stunning. Moving on to the red O. It's a very pigmented. Putting it kind of all over the brush, but then I'm going to take it and kind of work the product into the brush because obviously I'm lighter skin tone, so I don't need to put red all over straight away. It needs to be soft. So we're going to slowly build this color up. Gosh, why do I love this so much? I love that shade. I actually really love red blush. I've always really liked it, but lately I've been more brave wearing it. Love this. Oh my gosh, these blushes. I think I like these blushes the most out of all the palettes. That is so beautiful. Definitely very bright. I'm just taking my concealer brush, just blending that in. And you see a big difference between one blush and the other. The other one is very peachy. This is very red, bright. What do you guys think of these blushes? I love them so much. I feel like I'm going to wear them a lot. I'm going to reach for these blushes. Now we have these two, and I'm kind of scared what to do with these because they're just going to be too deep. So I'm probably going to use them as blush topper. That one is definitely a blush topper for me. I could get away with a soft highlighter. So I'm going to put the more goldeny one on the peach side and the rose one on the red side. So let's do that. I'm taking a soft, fluffy brush. This is from Morphe. And let's start with the light one. That's all I'm taking. Taking some off. I'm scared. And then we're going to slowly. Oh no, that is beautiful. Oh, that works so well with that blush. Whoo. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much I like this palette. This is going to be my favorite palette, guys. You'll see. That is very, very beautiful. Obviously, you can build it up much more and it'll be too intense for me if I do that. Very, very surprised and impressed with that. Okay, let's move on to the other side. I am going to use the same brush because I think it's really good. I need to pick up a couple more because I use this all the time. Taking that rosy highlighter, it's probably a blush topper for me, and gently adding it here. Okay. So this is definitely just a blush topper for me. I don't want to bring it too high up. Yeah, I probably brought it a little high up here and it could give a little bit of a shadow. I should have just kept it right here, but it's workable. It reminds me a little bit of the Rare Beauty blushes, the round one. They're very highlighty. That's this blush right here on my skin tone. On deeper skin tone, obviously it's going to be a highlighter. That works too. Wow. I am loving this so much, and I am shocked how how much I like this palette. I just want to take a little bit of this color and put it right here. And why not? Let's take this highlighter. I do have some kind of glitter thing. They are the Dose of Color new glitter in a tube. Oh, these right here, they are incredible. I should have done a video on them, but I think they're sold out and I feel bad to do a video on them now. So I'm going to take that highlighter and put it over that. That is beautiful. That works so well. Soft, but it can be an eyeshadow. And here is the last palette. This is the Lotus Flower palette, and it is the deepest one. And I can't believe I made this work. I actually really love the blushes in this palette, and I even like the highlighters. I just use them as blush toppers. And those are all the 3 palettes demoed. And I'm so glad I did every single palette by itself, because you get a feel for how the palette looks like. I didn't want to mud the skin, because once you add blush over bronzer, it just starts looking muddy. So let me give you my thoughts on them. First of all, these are very expensive, and overall, this whole idea is quite repetitive every year, right? That's what Hourglass does. It's what they're known for, and I appreciate that. I love it. Every time Hourglass releases these, it signals fall for me. It signals Christmas. I'm just ecstatic. I think that this time around, Hourglass changed the colors a little bit more. I found them overall more interesting, more unique colors. I love that they gave us 5 new shades in each palette, and the shade that it is a repeat, it's just a finishing powder, which there's only so many colors that you could do of that. So I really appreciate that. Let's start with the Dragon one. I really like this. I think for my skin tone, this works really well. I love the bronzer in this one. It looks more cool tone here, but on the skin, it looked like a beautiful neutral bronzer. I also loved the finishing powders on this. I need to use them all the time, and I need to remind myself to use them, because every time I reach for these palettes, I love the powders, the finishing powders from Hourglass, and they are truly filter in a bottle. And I'm not mad getting 2 of the finishing powders, because I think you're gonna go through that the fastest out of all of them. Love the blushes. I thought that this color was very, very interesting and unique. See, it looks kind of gray there, but no, once you blend it in, it just becomes a little bit more warm, very interesting shade. The highlighter is so beaming. I would say it's too much for me. That's too much glow. I don't wear that much highlighter. So I personally am gonna have to be extra careful. I'm gonna have to take a lot of it off and just gently graze my cheek with this. But I can use that in the inner corner and on the lids. Like, you could definitely add a little bit of brightness. Yeah, that helps a lot. I love the coral blush as well. I like that it had a lot more glow in it. I think that this works best for my skin tone, and I will get a lot of use out of that one. Now, this middle one, you know, I thought I would love it the most, but I found it a little deeper for me than I was expecting. I still think it works. It's beautiful, but I love seeing that, because this should be deeper. It should work for medium skin tone. I love the finishing powder of this one. I think it's my favorite out of all of them, because it has that peachiness in it. The bronzer, I felt like it could pull muddy on me if I build it up too much. I can use this as a contour for my skin tone, but if I were to build this up too much, I can see it go muddy on me. So be aware of that, but I'm still happy to see a more neutral, cool tone bronzer rather than just all the warm bronzers that we have. The blushes were all fantastic. My favorite is definitely this one. I'm boring and I really like beigey blushes. The coral was really nice. This shade actually impressed me a lot as well. This pink one, it did not pull cool tone on me, but it may on you. And then the highlighter was really pretty, super bright. All these highlighters are so intense. For personal use, I would have loved them to be more softer. I'm just not into super bright highlighters. And so for me, I will have to be careful with these and use the softest, gentlest hand. And because some of these blushes are bright and glowy, having an even more intense highlighter can make it look a little just too much. So just be careful with that. But if you like glowing, so somebody can see you from outer space, these are it. And then this Lotus, a beauty right here. I am so impressed with that. This is my favorite. I love it so much. I love the blushes in it. Love this one. Absolutely loved this red. It looks kind of mauvey there, but on the skin, it turns, you see? Turns kind of more red. It's right here. I love this. I love the blushes in here. I got use out of these as well as like blush toppers. Obviously, this is just not for me, but I am able to use the finishing powder as a bronzer. So I think out of all of them, this is my favorite. I really, really like it. And I love this shade on my eyes. I thought it just gave it something special because it almost has like a plummy undertone to it. And I think that that would be beautiful on deeper skin tones. So obviously, if you have deep skin tones, this is a palette for you. I love that we're seeing Hourglass be a little bit more inclusive. Could we do better? We can always do better, but this is better than last year, in my opinion. I think the undertones are better for deeper skin tone, the contour / bronzer shade, the highlighters. So overall, I think they did better this year, and I think this is my favorite out of all of them. Second is the lightest palette, the Dragon. I love those finishing powders, and the bronzer looks really good on me. So those are all the swatches comparison on these palettes. I hope this was helpful and that I gave you enough information. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. I read every single comment. Even if I can't respond to all of them, I will read all the comments, and it's my favorite thing to do either at night or in the morning. I will just go through your comments. I think Hourglass is doing the same thing, right? We expect this from them, but I do have to say that the colors that they picked were a little bit more interesting this year. I loved to see a little bit more depth in the palette. I loved to see different color bronzers. And overall, I really, really like them. That is it for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, found it helpful, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.